Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we'll be talking about wind power as generated by wind turbines. Please remember to like and subscribe. Now let's get right into it. Fact 1. Ancient technology. Despite the common misconception that renewable energy sources such as wind, solar is a modern invention, in reality, wind power is actually a very ancient and old technology. Humans have been using wind power for thousands of years to power things like grinding mills or pump water from the ground wells. You can see wind power in action easily in any farms around the world. Wind power has been harnessed for a long time, but not in the way that you think in terms of the wind turbines that you see in wind farms. That is truly a new invention in the modern times, and the sole purpose of those are to generate electricity versus the ancient wind technologies that are used for replacing manual labor. And obviously the ancient or older wind power technologies are not as efficient as the current wind turbines. Now let's get into the next fact. Fact 2. Ganshu Wind Farm. The Ganshu Wind Farm in China is the largest wind farm in the world. Wind farm by definition is hundreds if not thousands of wind turbines placed in a similar location, all generating power at the same time. Well, not at the same time because wind is variable, and so some would turn while others remain stationary. But the Ganshu Wind Farm in China has a capacity of over 6,000 megawatts, and they're actually increasing by building more and more wind turbines to go up to 20,000 megawatts. This is by far the largest wind turbine in the world. And as we'll get into the next section, the location of the wind turbine doesn't necessarily need to be in the location with always high winds. The winds can be variable, and the people who build them, the engineers, will just have to take into account the variability and the best way to optimize wind turbines in terms of the cost and benefit ratio. Now let's get into the next fact. Fact 3. Offshore farms. This is something that people may not realize, but when you go to the beach, when you go to near the ocean, the wind is always blowing. And so people realize this and have built wind farms offshore, meaning that they're not actually on land and is similar to oil rigs offshore where they're in the middle of the ocean. This poses a big challenge though, because land wind farms can be easily connected by transmission stations and power lines versus the offshore farms, which need more difficult electrical capacity and infrastructure to transmit the energy from the offshore back to the ground. In fact, studies have shown that offshore wind power is one of the most expensive renewable energy sources out there. Again, because of the cost necessary to construct something in the middle of the ocean and to relay that power back to the land. Offshore wind power is definitely a modern, latest technology, because you can imagine ancient times, humans cannot go row a boat out and tow a huge wind turbine behind them and construct these sort of things. So these are definitely a new modern invention. Let's get into the next fact. Fact 4. Energy sprawl. As we talked about earlier, a single or several wind turbines spinning doesn't take long to construct. You really just construct the mast, attach the turbine at the top, attach the blades, and let it roll. But the problem is, the energy that it produces needs to be transmitted back to power stations and transformer stations. And so wind power farms will in turn require a lot of electrical infrastructure construction. Not to mention that wind power turbines take up a lot of space. Where they want to create wind farms will evidently cause a lot of open spaces to be used up by wind turbines in order to generate power. And so this is another area to consider for wind power because the power density is very small. It needs a huge tract of land with open spaces or huge offshore vast empty oceans to construct a powerful enough wind farm to generate enough electricity to make it worthwhile. And so this is one of the drawbacks of wind power, and as a result, not every country or every region around the world has fully adopted it. Comparison to solar power, it's easy to construct solar arrays in the middle of the desert because no one's really there, and then you just wire the electricity back to civilization. Wind power is definitely a difficult way to generate power. Let's get to the next and final fact. Strong winds not required. As I mentioned, this is the map of the wind speeds around the world. You can see the polar and the Antarctic latitudes have the strongest winds. And in the middle, most of the times it's calm winds. Well, some desert or flat plains have pretty strong winds. You can see that Northern Europe is a strong candidate for wind power, and as you can see here, Denmark is leading #1 with wind power. And Ireland, Portugal, Spain as an example, they have good amounts of high power wind to generate electricity. But if you see that list, you saw Uruguay was on there, and Uruguay actually doesn't have massive amounts of wind. You can see here, Uruguay is in the blue and green area. This tells you that strong winds are naturally not required. Money is what's required. Well, that's it for my video today. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.